Alone at the gala, a billionaire's unexpected offer revealed a heartwarming, life-changing moment. The shimmering lights of the grand ballroom sparkled like stars against the dark evening sky. Sarah Anderson stood at the entrance, her heart racing, feeling as out of place as a solo daisy in a field of extravagant roses. She had always believed in grit, not glitter, yet here she was at a gala that radiated luxury and opulence, hosted by none other than Jonathan Clark, the elusive billionaire who seemed to have it all. But for Sarah, who had spent countless nights crafting pastries in her humble bakery, this was more like a surreal dream than a reality. She glanced down at her worn apron, a stark contrast to the designer gowns swirling around her. Goosebumps prickled her skin as chilly air slid through the open doors. Thoughts of her son Ben echoed in her mind, reminding her of the struggles she faced to keep their little world afloat. How could she fit in with this crowd, while he was at home, dreaming of a future that felt so far away? As the night drifted on, Sarah's gaze caught sight of a solitary figure across the room, a weary veteran with a kind smile. His presence felt comforting in the swirling chaos, and she noticed how he shifted uncomfortably among the glitzy guests, desperately trying to join the conversation, but met with polite indifference. A wave of compassion crashed over her, and without a second thought, she approached him. She shared stories of her bakery, the warmth of freshly baked bread, and how it brought comfort to everyone who stepped through her door. The veteran's eyes lit up, as if he'd been granted a golden ticket to a world he'd felt excluded from. Jonathan, standing a few feet away, caught the moment. He felt the pull of her authenticity, something he'd hard-pressed to find in the circles he navigated. The solitude of his wealth started to weigh heavily on him, and he found himself drawn to the genuine kindness that Sarah exuded. The palpable connection sparked a feeling in him that had long been buried beneath the weight of business deals and elite gatherings. But just as they began to forge a bond, Sarah's phone buzzed violently in her pocket, a cold bite of reality shaking her out of the warmth of the moment. It was her landlord, demanding yet another rent increase. Panic surged through her. The bakery was her lifeblood, a home for both her and Ben. It was now dangling by a thread, threatened by an unseen rival bakery set to open nearby. She felt a tight knot in her chest, choking on the pride that had guided her all these years. Should she reach out for help? Could she trust someone from this world she barely understood? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Jonathan noticed her distress. In that moment, he wrestled with his own fears, opening a door to vulnerability he'd kept closed for far too long. He offered her an investment in her bakery, a lifeline that lodged itself directly in the heart of her fierce independence. His gaze held a sincerity that belied the complex history written on his soul. The air thickened with tension as Sarah battled with conflicting emotions, weighing the promise of stability against the cost to her self-sufficiency. Could she really allow herself to lean on someone who seemed so far removed from her daily struggles? As the gala danced around them, filled with laughter and dreams glittering like the chandeliers overhead, she felt the weight of an unspoken decision loom over her. Just when they began to peel back the layers of their guarded lives, her phone buzzed again, a notification about the rival bakery's grand opening. Time ticked away, the room swirled with urgency, and Sarah found herself torn between hope and fear. Would she risk everything, or retreat into the safety of her solitude? The future loomed just beyond the ballroom doors, as unpredictable as the chilly wind outside. Facing Jonathan felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, with the vast ocean of consequences churning below. Sarah could see the sincerity in his eyes, but a bitter taste of doubt lingered in her mouth. She wasn't just making a choice about money. This was about her pride, her history, and the fragile hopes she held for Ben's future. "Are you serious?" she finally blurted out, her voice trembling slightly. Jonathan nodded, a hint of vulnerability in his expression. "I've seen what you've built. Your bakery means more than you know, not just to you, but to the people who walk through those doors." His words touched Sarah deeply, and she thought about the faces of her customers, the regulars who came every morning for their coffee and pastries, the children who giggled as they picked out their favorite treats. What would it mean to risk that for a chance at something more? The gala around them continued, laughter and champagne flowing freely, a stark contrast to the weight she felt heavily pressing on her heart. As she mulled over his offer, her mind drifted back to Ben. He had dreams of becoming a scientist, of doing something great. How could she provide for that future if the bakery was taken from her? At that moment, a loud cheer erupted in the ballroom. Sarah's gaze shifted towards the commotion. Guests had gathered around a stage, eager to watch a well-known celebrity perform. The shimmering lights sparkled through the crowd, but Sarah felt cloaked in darkness, battling her own uncertainties. "Sarah," Jonathan's voice broke through her thoughts. "I know this feels overwhelming. I'm not asking you to decide right now. Just think about it. You're not alone anymore. You have options. But was it really that simple?" The world of the rich was alien to her. She looked back at the veteran, who was now lost in the crowd, treated like an outsider in a world teeming with privilege. What kind of life would she be inviting in if she accepted help from Jonathan? And could she bear to let go of the pride that had always been her driving force? I need to think," she said, trying to maintain her composure. Deep down, each word felt like a tiny cut, an acknowledgement that she might not be strong enough to pull through alone. Jonathan smiled softly, but she could see the concern mixed with respect in his eyes. "Take your time. I'll be here." They stood there in silence, engulfed in a world that seemed to move on without them. The palpable tension between them was a web of possibilities, rubbing against Sarah's heart like an echo. Her phone buzzed again, a sudden interruption, a reminder of the world waiting outside this bubble of glittering chaos. The message was from Ben. "Mom, can you bring home some pastries? The new bakery sounds scary." Tears pricked at Sarah's eyes. Her heart swelled with love for her son. He was her reason, the light that kept her fighting even through the storm. But now, as she stood at this pivotal moment, would letting go of her stubborn independence mean admitting defeat or embracing a new path? Sarah looked at Jonathan, his expression calm, yet filled with hope. Maybe this was more than just an offer. Maybe it was a chance for transformation. The night air wrapped around her, and she took a deep breath, confronting the cold reality of her choices. But what if turning to him for help meant risking not just her bakery, but the connection she felt building between them? As the lights sparkled and the crowd continued to swirl, a question loomed larger than the decision itself. Could she truly trust someone who lived in a world so different from her own? Her heart raced as she faced the truth. Time continued to slip by, ticking away moments that seemed too important to waste. Would she dare to leap into this unknown? In that stillness, just outside the noise of the gala, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. And as the next round of applause erupted from the stage, she silently pondered the biggest leap of all. Could she take the first step toward embracing the life she truly wanted with Jonathan? By her side, as the applause faded and the spotlight dimmed, Sarah's thoughts were in turmoil. She turned back to the stage, where the celebrity twirled dramatically, casting shadows that danced around the room. The energy of the crowd surged, but she felt like she was in suspended animation, caught between the life she knew and an uncertain future. "Just take a deep breath," Jonathan urged softly, inching closer, sensing her unease. "We're here, and I'm not going anywhere." She focused on his words, willing the panic to subside. But it only amplified as memories of her bakery flickered through her mind like a slideshow scenes of flour-dusted countertops, the comforting warmth of freshly baked bread, and the faces of loyal customers who felt like family. "What if I lose it all?" she whispered, her voice almost drowned out by the jubilant chatter around them. Jonathan met her gaze, those deep brown eyes steady and encouraging. What if you gained so much more? Your bakery can grow. It could be a platform. Think of all the lives you touch every day. You could reach even more people. A glimmer of hope pierced through her anxiety. The thought of expansion had been a distant dream, almost foolish in her current state. But with guidance and resources, could she truly transform her humble bakery into something bigger? Your passion for baking is infectious, he continued, his voice steadying her. Let that guide you. You have the heart, Sarah. I can help you make those dreams a reality. The words wrapped around her heart like a gentle hug, but doubt was a persistent shadow. What do you get out of this, Jonathan? She searched his expression for hidden motives or insincerity. Is it charity? Something to add to your portfolio? He chuckled softly, shaking his head, but the warmth in his smile was genuine. It's not about the money for me. It's about seeing people thrive, especially someone like you who has so much potential. I admire your tenacity. Don't let pride hold you back. Pride, such a small word, yet it clung to her being like a heavy chain. She had fought tooth and nail to build her bakery, and the thought of accepting help felt like a betrayal of her struggle. But the weight of her circumstances was becoming unbearable. Think about Ben, she reminded herself softly. He deserved a chance at his dreams too. What would it mean to him if I followed this path? The realization washed over her like a soft wave. If she could secure their future and the bakery's future by taking this leap, was it really worth letting her pride decide for her? Okay, maybe. Her voice was shaky, but determination warmed her bones. Maybe I can consider your offer. Jonathan's eyes lit up, and suddenly, the tension that had been suffocating her lifted. That's all I ask. We take this one step at a time. His happiness was contagious, uplifting the air around them. She dared to let herself dream. What if they collaborated? What if together they could create something beautiful, something that added to her bakery's legacy and reached even further into the community? The possibilities mirrored the shimmering lights around them the more she thought about it. The more bright ideas began to sparkle. But deep in her heart, another thought lingered. Could this connection with Jonathan deepen into something more? Was there a chance for them to navigate this complicated realm together, united not just by business, but by something personal? As they shared a moment of silence, the crowd buzzing nearby, Sarah felt a shift. Maybe she could trust him. Maybe this was the beginning of a new adventure. But just then, a jarring sound broke the moment. A crash echoed from behind them. Curiosity and concern spurred Sarah into action. What was that? Jonathan's expression shifted instantly from warm encouragement to vigilant focus. Let's find out. Together, they moved towards the source of the noise, the secure hold of their moment slipping through their fingers like sand. What lay ahead could change everything once again, but one thing was clear: this was just the beginning. As Sarah and Jonathan wove their way through the crowd, the laughter and chatter faded, replaced by a growing sense of urgency. Their footsteps quickened as they navigated the throng of elegantly dressed guests, each lost in their own world of celebration. The crash had sounded severe, a sharp intrusion amid the glittering ambience. Over there, Jonathan pointed toward a cluster of guests piled around a toppled table. Broken glass and spilled champagne creating a messy tableau of chaos. Sarah's heart raced. Images of her bakery's meticulously arranged pastries and smooth countertops flashed through her mind. She couldn't help but think how much she despised messes as they approached. A woman, her eyes wide with disbelief, stood frozen, clearly overwhelmed by the spectacle. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I just tripped." Her hands were shaking, and her voice quivered as if she might burst into tears. The man beside her wore the unmistakable look of irritation. His suit rumpled from the impact. "You need to watch where you're going. This is unacceptable." His tone was sharp, cutting through the air like the shards of glass on the floor. Feeling an inexplicable tug in her chest, Sarah stepped in. "Hey, it was an accident. We've all been there," she said gently, offering a soft smile to the shaken woman. "Let us see what we can do to help." Jonathan nodded in agreement, kneeling to gather the scattered items. "Moving quickly helps." He flashed a reassuring grin. but his eyes met Sarah's with a spark of shared commitment. They quickly formed a team, clearing debris while others watched with a mix of relief and curiosity. With every piece of glass they picked up, Sarah could feel her earlier tension seep away. The air around her became lighter, untying the knots in her stomach. Moments like this reminded her why she loved her bakery so much. It was about community, about helping each other even when it seemed like a mess. As they worked, the spirit of the event gradually returned. Others began pitching in, too, drawn by the calm energy Sarah and Jonathan created. The scattered guests now bubbled with chatter again, united in the process of turning the scene back to celebration. "Thank you," the woman whispered, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I didn't mean to ruin the night." "Don't worry about it," Sarah replied, her heart swelling with empathy. "Tonight is about enjoying ourselves and learning from all our little slips." Just then, amidst the cider and cake crumbs, Sarah caught Jonathan observing her with admiration. There was an unspoken bond forming, a connection deeper than mere business. She could sense a shift in their relationship, one that blossomed in moments of vulnerability and kindness. "Let us get some fresh drinks," Jonathan suggested, standing up and brushing off his hands. "We earned it." As they turned to leave the makeshift scene, a familiar voice piped up. "Sarah, is it you?" It was an old client from her bakery, a man whose daughter had once decorated cakes with her. "Yes. Hey, oh my goodness." She rushed over, excitement flashing through her momentarily distracted mind. "Didn't he expect to see you here?" The man smiled warmly, his eyes lighting up. "I've been following your posts. You're an inspiration, you know. My daughter tells me your bakery is her favorite place. We'll have to stop by soon." Sarah felt the warmth spreads through her. "Of course. Just let me know you're coming. I'd love to make a cake for you both." Jonathan stood back, observing her easily engage with acquaintances. There was something magnetic about her. Watching her interact, he realized he may have found not just a business partner, but someone who resonated with what he valued: community, connection, and compassion. "Let us go get those drinks," he urged gently, pulling her back into the current of the night. As they walked away, Sarah felt a new energy coursing through her. Perhaps Jonathan was right after all. Perhaps this was a step towards something much bigger than her bakery alone. But even as her heart lifted with the potential of her dreams, a chill rushed through her. What about her current life? What would it cost her to step forward into this unknown, and who might be left behind? Before she could dwell on it, a sudden scream pierced the air, a cry for help that shattered the joyful atmosphere like glass shattering on the ground. Uncertainty crept back in, and she didn't know what awaited them next. Was it time for courageous steps forward or retreat? With a deep breath, Sarah glanced at Jonathan, the question lingering in her eyes. Would they face this new challenge together? Before they could respond, the crowd surged in the direction of the scream. Panic danced in the air, and Sarah could feel her heart thudding in her chest. She looked at Jonathan, whose expression mirrored her concern. They pushed forward, determined to discern the source of the chaos. As they arrived at the commotion, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. A young girl, maybe 8 or 9, stood at the edge of the crowd, tears streaming down her face. Clutching a small stuffed animal tightly to her chest, she was surrounded by adults, some frantically searching through bags and jackets. "I can't find my mom," the girl cried, her small voice wavering. It struck Sarah like a punch to the gut. This child was clearly lost and terrified. No, it's okay," Sarah whispered, kneeling down so their eyes could meet. "We're going to help you find her." Jonathan stood beside her, a calming presence. "What's your name?" he asked gently, crouching next to Sarah for a better angle. "Lily," she sniffled, her big brown eyes wide with fear. I was looking at the balloons," and then Sarah felt a wave of empathy wash over her. She remembered being a child, lost in a crowd, feeling the world around her shrink to nothing but her worries. "Stay with us, Lily. We're not going anywhere until we find your mom, okay?" The girl nodded, and Sarah took her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "Can you remember anything?" Jonathan prompted. "What does your mom look like?" "She has brown hair and a purple dress," Lily exclaimed, hope flickering in her eyes. "All right, let us start there," Sarah said, her voice steady. "I'll help you call her name." "Mom," Lily shouted, her small voice echoing against the walls of the lavish venue. It was swallowed in the noise of the party, but Sarah felt a tugging in her heart, a collective hope hanging in the air. As they began to search, Jonathan took charge, spreading the word among other guests. He quickly organized a mini-search party, urging everyone to keep an eye out for the girl's mother. His confident demeanor seemed to ripple through the crowd, inspiring people to join the effort rather than retreat back into their festivities. A moment later, the sound of a woman's voice broke through the chatter. "Lily, where are you, honey?" "Mom," Lily yelled, her face lighting up like a spark bursting into flame. Sarah pointed toward the sound, and the girl bolted in the direction of her mother's voice. The crowd parted as Lily ran, and Sarah followed closely behind, her heart racing with excitement. When they reached the end of the crowd, the little girl flung herself into her mother's arms. The woman's relief was palpable, tears glistening on her cheeks as she held her daughter tightly. Thank you," the mother exclaimed, overwhelmed with gratitude as she hugged her little girl. "You're safe now," Sarah reassured her, a warm glow creeping through her. "That's all that matters." As they turned back to leave, Jonathan glanced at Sarah, admiration mingling with his earlier uncertainties. "You were amazing back there," he said, his words flowing with sincerity. "Honestly, I just wanted to help," she replied, her heart still racing. But deep inside, she sensed a shift. In moments of crisis, connections deepen, and she felt an undeniable sense of purpose. Maybe stepping into the unknown meant not just expanding her bakery, but growing as a person. As the crowd began to settle, the earlier frenzy turned into a buzzing warmth, laughter returning as guests exchanged smiles. But the fragile moment was punctured once more. A loud crash echoed from the side of the venue, as a chandelier teetered precariously above them. Both Sarah and Jonathan exchanged worried glances. Was this another accident? What fate awaited them, just when they thought the worst was over? With a breath caught in her throat, Sarah whispered, "Do you think it's safe?" Jonathan's jaw clenched slightly as he scanned the scene, determination gleaming in his eyes. Only one way to find out. His voice steeled her resolve, and together they stepped into the fray once more, hand in hand, ready to face whatever would come next. The chandelier trembled again, sending a shiver down Sarah's spine. The light glimmered dangerously, a cascade of crystals threatening to spill like rain. The crowd held its breath, an uneasy silence sweeping through the air. Jonathan squeezed Sarah's hand, steadying her even as uncertainty churned within her. "Stay close," he murmured, his voice low but firm, creating a protective bubble around them. Sarah nodded, her heart pounding, excitement mingling with fear. She took a step forward, eyes scanning the space for signs of chaos. A group of guests nearby gasped, huddling together as they pointed at the chandelier. It swayed violently, dislodging a few small crystals that tumbled to the polished floor like shattering glass dreams. "Everyone stay calm." A voice boomed from the front of the venue, an event manager, microphone in hand. "We will have this resolved in just a moment. Please clear the area underneath the chandelier." A ripple of movement surged through the crowd as people obeyed, creating distance between themselves and the source of danger. Sarah, however, felt an irresistible urge to help, to do something. "Jonathan, we should," before she could finish her thought. Another crash resonated from above as the chandelier tilted dangerously close to falling. The guests shrieked, and chaos erupted once more. Panic ignited the venue. Bodies pushed and shoved in a frantic rush toward the exits, flooding the area with noise. "Lily," a familiar voice rang out through the chaos. Sarah caught sight of the young girl, still standing near the entrance, her small frame trembling amidst the fleeing crowd. Heart racing, Sarah's instincts kicked in. "Jonathan, we have to help her," Sarah shouted, her voice rising above the din. He already knew it, though. "Go. I'll clear a path." With a nod, Sarah sprinted, weaving through the panicking guests. Each step felt heavy with urgency. She reached Lily just as the girl's eyes filled with tears again, this time not for being lost, but from fear. "Lily, it's okay." Sarah knelt beside her, blocking the view of the shattered chandelier. "Let us get you out of here. Your mom is safe, remember?" Lily nodded softly, but doubt flickered in her eyes. "But what if it falls?" "It won't. Trust me," Sarah assured her, her own heart pounding as she glanced back. The chaos was spreading, and time felt like sand slipping through their fingers. She took the girl's hand, her grip firm. "Stay close. Follow me." As they moved through the crowd, Sarah felt the weight of several gazes on them. Jonathan had maneuvered his way back to them, uniquely focused, urging people to part way, as if he was parting the Red Sea. Together, they made their way back toward the safe zone, where people were gathered away from the chandelier. Finally, they broke free of the surging crowd. Jonathan looked down at Lily, concern etched on his face. "You did great, Lily. Let us just find your mom now." "Mom!" Lily cried out again, desperation seeping into her voice. As if summoned, the girl's mother burst into view, panic-stricken and scanning the crowd wildly. Their eyes locked, and Lily took off, racing toward her mother. Relief washed over Sarah and Jonathan as they watched the reunion unfold, a whirlwind of tears and hugs. But before they could bask in the warmth of victory, Jonathan's phone vibrated violently in his pocket. He pulled it out, glancing at the screen. A shadow flickered across his face. "Sarah," he said, urgency creeping back into his voice. "I need to go. We might have a bigger problem." "What do you mean?" "Something about the chandelier. It's more serious than we thought." His words hung in the air, heavy with implications. Sarah's heart dropped. Had they stumbled into something bigger? "Let us not just walk away from this," Sarah said, her voice trembling with resolve. But as they prepared to face an even deeper turmoil, a louder crash echoed behind them. The striking sound became a lingering question in the air. What waited for them next? The deafening crash sent a shockwave through the crowd, freezing moments that felt like hours. Sarah turned slowly, dread pooling in her stomach as she watched the chandelier writhe ominously like a trapped creature. Jonathan's jaw tightened, and he instinctively moved closer to Sarah, positioning himself between her and the impending danger. The event manager's voice cut through the chaos again, but it was shaky this time. "Everyone needs to evacuate now. We can't guarantee your safety." Sarah's heart raced. They had to get out of here, but abandoning the scene didn't feel right. "What is going on?" she whispered to Jonathan, her voice strained. "I don't know, but we can't wait," he replied, eyes scanning the room. "The structural support, it's unstable. We should find a way out." "Wait." Sarah leaned towards him, urgency washing over her. "What is the bigger problem? What do you know?" Before he could answer, a gust of wind whipped through the grand hall, flinging decorations and papers into the air like angry butterflies. The chandelier's crystals trembled ominously, casting shadows on the guests' panicked faces. Suddenly, an elderly man stumbled beside them, eyes wild. "The roof's about to collapse. We need to move." Disbelief mixed with fear as Sarah and Jonathan exchanged glances. They turned towards the entrance, adrenaline coursing through their veins. As they weaved through the remnants of what had been a beautiful event, the realness of the moment hit her. These were people she had mingled with, laughed with moments ago. Now, they were just a mass of terror, each face a reflection of raw panic. "Stay together," Jonathan urged, taking Sarah's hand firmly. She nodded, squeezing his hand for strength. Sarah spotted Lily's mother still holding her child close, her face pale but resolute. "Over here," Sarah shouted, beckoning. They needed to stick together. No one should be left behind. Just as they reached the mother and daughter, the chandelier let out a spine-chilling creak, a final warning. Without thinking, Jonathan bolted to the front, guiding the group like a ship captain through a storm. "Keep moving," he shouted. Sarah felt her chest tighten, a wave of protective instinct flooding over her. "We can't just leave the others." Jonathan's eyes held hers fiercely, grounding her in the moment. We need to get to safety first, and then come back. With one last look at the shattered remnants of the Gala, Sarah felt the pull of fear deeply rooting itself within her. The crowd surged forward, haphazardly making their way. They rushed the main exit, desperately trying to make sense of the disarray. Suddenly, everyone's movement slowed, just as another loud noise erupted from overhead, echoing like a thunderclap. The lights flickered, plunging them into darkness for a brief moment. Gasps filled the air like a tide, and then, just as quickly, the emergency lights kicked on, a pale glow casting eerie shadows over frantic faces. "Let us go," Jonathan urged once more, pushing through the growing wave of people. Sarah had no choice but to follow, heart racing as uncertainty wrapped around her like a thick fog. They burst outside into the cold air, shivering against the night. But no one was safe yet, not with the threat of collapsing ceilings still looming large in Sarah's mind. Whereas the others? She breathed, panic rising again as she searched the chaos around her. Jonathan grabbed her shoulders, grounding her. "They'll follow. Right now, we need to regroup and find out what's really happening." But the frantic scene before her was overwhelming. In the backdrop of distant sirens and shouts, shadows flickered, resembling ghosts of the past. Just when she thought they were safe, Jonathan's phone buzzed again, and he looked at it with dawning horror. "Sarah, I just got a message. It's from my dad's company. They know about the chandelier, and they're not the only ones." That last phrase hung in the air like the lingering thread of the chandelier, as fear pulsed between them. What have they just stepped into? Wait, who else is involved? Sarah's voice came out shaky, but the question was sharp, demanding a truth that felt just out of reach. As Jonathan opened his mouth to answer, a distant sound reverberated through the night, a deep, rumbling roar far removed from the chaos they just fled. The ground trembled underfoot, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. What was coming next? Jonathan's face drained of color as the deep rumble echoed again, louder this time, shaking the ground beneath their feet. People began to scatter, panic igniting like flames in a dry field. "Come on," he shouted, pulling Sarah along toward a nearby park, momentarily stepping away from the chaos of the crowd. "Why are they involved?" The words burst from her, more desperate than accusing. "I don't know what it all means," he yelled back. But if they know, he hesitated, searching for the right words. It could be connected to the construction issues. They might have known the chandelier was unstable. As they rounded a corner, Sarah stumbled, nearly losing her balance. Jonathan steadied her, concern etched on his face. "Focus, Sarah. We need to stay calm." "Calm?" The words slipped out like air from her lungs. "Everything's falling apart." She felt the tension twisting in her gut, a visceral reaction to the uncertainty surrounding them. "Then let us find out who else is involved," Jonathan insisted, determination sharpening his features. "We can't just guess." In the distance, flashing lights pierced the dark, illuminating the panicked faces of guests spilling onto the street. Together, they edged deeper into the shadows of the park, searching for less crowded ground. As they approached a secluded bench, the rumbling grew nearer, pulsating through the earth, a foreboding herald of something about to happen. "Do you think?" Sarah began, but was cut off by a sudden scream from a nearby group. A woman pointed toward the sky, and for a fleeting moment, time froze again. Jonathan followed her gaze, his eyes widening. Above, a low-flying helicopter swept across the night, its spotlight scanning the area, illuminating terrified faces. "They're looking for somebody or something," Jonathan said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Or we're trying to keep us from something." The thought sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. What if this wasn't just a freak accident? What if there was something more sinister at play? "Look, we need to get a hold of Lily's mom," Jonathan said, scanning the area for familiar faces. Then we can. Before he could finish, the helicopter swooped closer, and for a moment, the light caught something glinting on the ground. It illuminated a small envelope that had fluttered from the crowd, landing just beside Sarah's feet. "It's addressed to me," she murmured, glancing up at Jonathan, who looked equally confused and alarmed. "Open it," he urged, eyes darting around them, still wary of the approaching noise. With trembling hands, she picked up the envelope, the paper cool against her fingers. She tore it open, heart zipping in her chest. Inside lay a single piece of paper, hastily scrawled with a name and number. "If you want answers, meet me at the old warehouse tomorrow night." "Hey, who is A?" Jonathan asked, glancing around as if the shadows might spill out some sinister answer. "Someone who knows," Sarah whispered, holding the paper tightly between her fingers. "I don't like this," he replied, his voice barely above a murmur. But even as he spoke, she could see determination glinting in his eyes. "We need to figure this out," Sarah said, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on her. "We have to know how deep this goes. But should we go alone?" Jonathan hesitated, and Sarah felt the air thick with tension. They were standing on the precipice of something huge, her heart racing with the weight of the unknown. Together, Jonathan finally decided, gripping her hand again like a lifeline. "Whatever happens next, we face it together." As the roar of the helicopter faded into the distance, Sarah felt a bolt of fierce resolve surge within her. Tomorrow might change everything, but for now, they had to survive the night. And then she realized, with a growing sense of foreboding, tomorrow could reveal not just secrets, but a truth far more profound than either of them could have anticipated. What if uncovering the truth meant losing everything they thought they knew? The night stretched on, heavy with uncertainty. Sarah and Jonathan found a small clearing in the park, surrounding themselves with the muffled sounds of chaos fading in the distance. They sat down on a damp patch of grass, trying to catch their breath, but the tension in the air tightened like a noose. "Do you think we should have told someone?" Jonathan broke the silence, worry lingering in his tone. "What if this goes deeper than we thought?" Sarah could hardly think. Her mind raced back to the envelope, the name A, and the ghostly hum of the helicopter overhead. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice shaky. "But if this person knows something, we can't ignore it. We need to find out who they are." Jonathan ran a hand through his hair, frustration spilling out. "What if it's a trap? What if they're involved in whatever is happening?" "I don't care," Sarah responded fiercely, surprising even herself. "If it can help us understand what happened tonight, we have to take that risk." With the weight of her words settling heavily between them, Jonathan finally nodded. "Okay, but we do this smart. No reckless moves." They sat in uneasy silence, both wrestling with their thoughts. Each of them had felt the adrenaline of the panic, but now, beneath the surface, fear coiled tightly around their hearts. What did it mean to seek the truth? What would it cost them? A sudden chill swept through the air, and Sarah glanced around, seeing shadows dance around the trees. She shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her shoulders. Just then, her phone buzzed in her pocket, and her heart jumped. Who could be texting her at a time like this? Pulling it out, the screen lit up with an unknown number, the very one from the envelope. "I'm here," it simply read. "Jonathan, look." She shoved the phone into his line of sight, her pulse accelerating. "What does it mean?" he asked, his brow furrowed. Before she could answer, a figure emerged from the shadows, draped in the cloak of night. It was too dark to make out features, but Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of unease wash over her. The stranger stepped closer, the flashlight from a nearby street lamp catching a glimpse of their face. But just as quickly as they were illuminated, obscured shadows swallowed them whole again. "We're not here to hurt you," the figure said, their voice low but steady. "I'm A. I know what you're both looking for." "What do you know?" Jonathan shot back, standing protectively in front of Sarah. "Everything," A replied, a sly smile barely visible in the dark. "But first, you have to trust me." Trust. It was a fragile thing, especially now. Sarah exchanged a glance with Jonathan, reading the mix of apprehension and a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. She felt it too. This could lead to answers, or it could plunge them further into danger. "Why should we?" Jonathan questioned, refusal etched into his features. "Because the truth can change everything. And I mean everything," A said, their tone dropping to a nearly conspiratorial whisper. But you must come with me. It's not safe here anymore. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide from whatever this was. But the allure of answers tugged at them, a siren call they couldn't ignore. Deep breath, Sarah whispered to herself, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Okay, she finally said, we'll go with you. As they moved to follow A into the darkness, Sarah felt another pulse of fear. Maybe there was no turning back from this. Tomorrow promised revelations, but now they faced the chilling unknown. What lay ahead could either free them or bind them in a way they couldn't escape. With hearts racing, they stepped into the shadows. Could they handle whatever truth awaited them? Or would it unravel everything they ever believed? The air felt different as Sarah, Jonathan, and they traversed the darkened path away from the chaos of the Gala. Shadows loomed tall around them, but the distant glow of a streetlight guided their steps. The city seemed to hold its breath. Every sound heightened, a siren wailing in the distance, the rustling of leaves, the echoes of feet scuttling away from the turmoil they had just escaped. It felt like they were walking deeper into something profound, something that would challenge everything that led the way, weaving through back alleys and hidden corners until they stopped in front of a dimly lit building. A rusty sign above read, Abandoned Warehouse 13. The name felt foreboding, and it sent another wave of unease through Sarah. Why here? She asked, her voice steady despite the racing heart beneath her jacket. Because this is where we can talk without prying ears, they replied, their tone unwavering. You both have stumbled onto something much bigger than you realize, trust me. Inside, the space transformed. The warehouse was cluttered with forgotten remnants, a time capsule of industrial history. A dim overhead light flickered, casting eerie shadows against the walls. It felt as if every object held a secret, waiting to spill out. Where do we start? Jonathan asked, crossing his arms defensively. A turn to them, the glint of determination reflecting in their eyes. Let us begin with the chandelier. The word brought back memories of the night, the laughter, the panic, and the little girl with lost hope. What about it? Sarah's voice was low, laden with uncertainty. The structural issues. They were ignored by the contractors. But it's deeper than just negligence. A paused, gauging their reactions. It's connected to the big business transactions around this gala. Money talked, and safety was sidelined. Sarah felt a chill ripple through her. So, this wasn't just an accident. Someone knew. Exactly, they affirmed. And they silenced anyone who might speak the truth. I've been tracking these dubious dealings, and they extend far beyond this city. You both hold pieces of this puzzle. Jonathan stepped closer, his expression lit by the soft glow of the light. What do you mean we hold pieces? Your bakery, Sarah. Your public engagement with the community, it's the heart beating against the corporate machine. And Jonathan, your family's involved in this, whether you realize it or not. They've been part of the veil hiding what is really happening. Jonathan's face went pale, realization settling in. My family? How could his voice trailed off? They're at the intersection. The power ate away at ethical boundaries. But you two together, you can bring about change, they said, a confidence building in their stance. Sarah felt hope start to flutter within her. But what can we do? We're just a baker and a businessman. No, they countered, leaning forward. You are more than that. You are the community. You are the bridge they fear. A realization settled over Sarah like a warm blanket. The bakery represented not just her journey, but the stories of countless patrons who believed in her. Each pastry made, each loaf baked, those were connections, not just products. Everything we do matters, she whispered, looking at Jonathan, who was processing something monumental unfolding. Yes, Jonathan exclaimed, and if we leverage that passion, we can shift narratives. The weight of their moment felt palpable, bringing a heartbeat to their burgeoning alliance. A smiled, relief flooding their features. You see? But now, we have to prepare. This battle isn't just against negligence, it's against shadows that want to quash your spirit. Your unveiling must happen strategically. Tomorrow at dawn, Jonathan declared, fire igniting in his eyes. We'll gather our supporters, those who believe in this change, and I'll promote it. Sarah added, the excitement building. I can use my platform to share our mission. We can expose the truth together. I nodded, satisfaction filling the air around them. I'll reach out to those affected by the chandelier's fall, tell them you're leading the charge. The ripple effect will start to grow. As they planned, the sense of camaraderie thickened in the room. Each small thread of hope started to weave a fabric of resistance against the dark forces they would soon face. The night waned, but their resolve was just beginning to take flight. And as they stepped back out into the cool morning light for the final planning, Sarah felt the weight on her shoulders lift slightly. This was more than just a fight for her bakery. This was a fight for her community, her son, and the future they all deserved. Tomorrow would be a tale of courage. No longer would she operate alone. She had a partner who believed in her, and together they would shine a light into the places that needed it most. The dawn was approaching, but the call still echoed in her mind. Would their courage be enough to confront the darkness? Only time would tell. As they turned to leave the warehouse, ready to embrace the coming dawn, Sarah whispered a silent promise. She wouldn't let fear dictate her path any longer. And with that understanding, both the past and future aligned in a bright, powerful connection ready to push forward into the light. Now, this is your moment of revelation too. You need to subscribe now and never miss a moment of our journey together. Hit that like button right now to feed the algorithm and help others join our community. Leave your comments below about how you felt as we uncovered the truth. And wait, not even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need this transformation in their own lives. Show them you stand for truth, hope, and change. Together, we rise.